Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the debut album from Maddie Tae, titled Start Here. You know, it's kind of funny. I think I've talked more about the phenomenon that is Maddie Tae more than their actual music itself. Then again, I don't think I'm alone in that fact. When Girl in the Country songs smashed into the country scene in the second half of 2014, it was seen as the long-awaited backlash to the sputtering phenomenon otherwise known as bro country. And even though the girls themselves being rather coy about the whole issue, it certainly inspired some anger from the bro country set and their fan base. After all, according to them, who wouldn't want to be considered a girl in one of their country songs? Now I was a lot more skeptical here, and that had to do with the people backing them, albeit circumspectly. Big Machine, run by Scott Borchetta, and the label responsible for introducing the world to Taylor Swift. But with Taylor Swift leaving country music for pop, Borchetta knew that he had to fill the hole in the country market somehow, so why not introduce a country duo who could replace her, also wrote all of their own songs, and add easy marketing as the tide was turning on the bro country that he helped push to market in the first place. Play both sides against the middle and just rake in the cash. That had been my hypothesis about Maddie Tae last December, when I made my Billboard Breakdown special comment about their success in the context of God-Made Girls, that piece of overproduced junk from Raylan that at the time was on the rise. And I had originally seen Maddie Tae and Raylan as two sides of the same coin, just replacing Taylor Swift. One would be the confrontational group willing to pick the fight, the other would cater to the more demure, more conservative Christian demographic. But a few important things happened since then that changed the entire script on me. Number one, Raylan pretty much dropped off the face of the earth, haven't heard anything from her. Maddie and Tae released their second single, Fly, which proved that they could actually reach that softer market, and more interestingly, they started pushing back. They spoke out against the increasingly stiff nature of modern country production, and reportedly fought for a more neo-traditional country sound for their debut. So, okay, you've got me interested. I'm on board here thus far. So how does Start Here turn out? Well, honestly, for a debut, I did get more than what I was expecting, but it's a sort of album that doesn't really give me a lot to talk about. It's pretty short, pretty lightweight, it's got its spots of cleverness, and no obvious train wrecks or bad tracks. Overall, Start Here, it's a good album, but it's not quite a great album, not quite hitting the level of detail and nuance that characterizes Casey Musgraves or Lucy Hale at their best. Although the duo handily steps over Kelsey Ballerini, to say nothing of a big swath of modern bro country. In other words, it is recommended, but it's not an essential album, let's just say that. So let's try to unpack why I don't quite love it, and the best place to start would be in the duo themselves. Now, if you know your country for the past 2 decades, you'll pick up on the inspirations behind their vocal affectations almost immediately. The Dixie Chicks. And this immediately puts me in a bit of an awkward place, because I've never, ever really been a fan of the Dixie Chicks. Yeah, they got a few good songs and that one good album, but I've always found a lot of their vocals really grating, and their harmonies never really got around all of that. Now, to their credit, Maddie and Tae have a less aggressively nasal tone that allows them to play off each other a little bit better, but it's also very clear that Maddie Marlowe is taking the main lead on these tracks, and that strikes me as a bit of a wasted opportunity to give Taylor Dye's vocals a little bit more room to shine. Almost a little reminiscent about how Tyler Hubbard just has the most dominant tone in Florida Georgia Line, they never really play off each other more. And I'll say what I always do about country acts with multiple singers, hell, any band with multiple singers like this, especially when it comes to the songwriting. It always strikes me as lost potential if you don't write songs that allow you to play off each other. It just strikes me as a wasted opportunity. But then again, it's a debut album. I would have been blown out of the water if they had chosen to step into more storytelling with interweaving lines with each girl right out of the gate. But fortunately, I do think they have a lot of that potential, because the songwriting on this album is pretty damn solid. I might not be as moved by some of the songs you typically expect from a debut, like Waiting on a Plane is about wistful longing to start your career, No Place Like You makes a very obvious Wizard of Oz reference for home while touring, and Fly is your fairly standard self-esteem anthem. But the nuance is in the details, and it comes with Maddie and Tae not exactly mincing words about how tough things can actually be. There's a straightforward bluntness to songs like Right Here, Right Now, where they just want the guy to kiss them already, or the blasting of an ex on your side of town just to stay away from him. And it actually makes me wish they were a little bit more transgressive or pushed a little bit harder. Girl in the Country song remains a standout here, and I love how many bro country references they managed to cram into by pointing out the meat-headed objectification that runs through that subgenre. But I also really like Shut Up and Fish, how they just got heartily sick of some guys they invited fishing with them, and while both those guys were unprepared for the experience, spent the whole time trying to flirt with them. So the girls dumped them in the lake, as you would otherwise do. It kind of flips the typical fishing metaphor from the guy's perspective to the girls, and I thought that was kind of nifty. But it's also one of the reasons that Sierra doesn't quite hit as well as I'd like. I get the very Casey Musgraves-esque dance around, calling this image of Seth Vapid's social a of just calling her a bitch and instead hoping for karma to hit her instead. But the track ended up feeling just a little bit clumsy for me, especially on the transitions. Thankfully, there are some moments where they can tackle some more complicated situations and do them pretty well. Like Smoke, where they know it's probably a bad idea to go for a bitter guy who may have been burned in the past. You can feel sympathy, but it doesn't exactly excuse bad behavior and playing games now. Or the compassion that comes on after the storm blows through, which shows some real honesty on how things might not get better immediately for a friend who lost a loved one, but she'll do whatever she can, whether it just requires her to keep her distance or actually being there. And then there's Downside of Growing Up, very much a coming of age song about having to take responsibility and doing things on your own, including handling heartbreak, which resonates with me easily a fair bit, and the girls really do pull it off well. So okay, after praising all the writing on nearly every song on this album, where do things fall flat? Well, I wouldn't so much say they fall flat, but I think it comes in the production and the instrumentation. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the foundation here. Far more steel guitar and fiddles and bluegrass-inspired, banjo-driven acoustic grooves with enough sizzle in the background from the electric guitars to give these tracks some real rollicking energy. And while I could swear there are some electronic beats on this album, like on Smoke or Right Here, Right Now, they're often faded or mixed just well enough to disguise them, and real drums nearly always replace them at some point on any track, even on the most obviously synthetic Girl in a Country song, which always felt choppier and more synthetic than it really should, even if it is redeemed a lot by much of the subject matter. And really, there's enough solid fiddle moments and steel guitar to steal the show whenever they pop up. And there's a fair amount of variety in these songs too, between the honky-tonk, old-fashioned stompers like Shut Up and Fish and Your Side of Town, to the more ethereal Smoke and the gorgeous strings and acoustic textures on After the Storm Blows Through. But there are two distinctive issues instrumentally that cropped up for me the more I listened through this album, and the first is the production. Dan Huff is a very good producer, making sure that all the tones have texture and blend well, but it often feels like the mix can be a little bit busy right at the very front, not giving the primary melodies enough room to breathe and really stick in the memory, especially on those choruses. But even if that was fixed, there's still a larger issue in the composition for me. Namely, that it feels very choppy and staccato, between the stuttered grooves, the lack of a thicker, more liquid bass, and the very distinctive plucked tones. These songs can feel just a little bit jittery to me, which chops up the melody even further and makes it honestly a little less memorable. It's not always there, but considering how short this album is, it doesn't exactly help the overall flow from track to track, at least for me. So, to summarize, as with pretty much the entire conversation about Maddie and Tae, I think I like what this album represents a lot more than I like the actual music, and that does bug me. I'm not wild about their singing and their current type of instrumentation, and while good songwriting and a lot of texture redeems a lot with me, that instrumental foundation doesn't quite feel as established as I'd like. But again, it's a debut, and I'm inclined to be very positive about the future here, and really there's a lot to like about this, which is pushing this album up to a 7 out of 10 for me. But I get the feeling they can do a hell of a lot better. But as it is, a female country duo who can write smart songs, they know their history, and aren't bowing out to modern overproduction from Nashville, that's all a big plus. At least in my book. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Just, once again, good albums here. I don't have time for crap again after having to deal with Miley. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.